Chapter 20. Russia, 1506 AD. "Quiet!" Mikhail snapped. "I should never have let you come, Kuritsa." Sasha fumed. Puffing away a stray lock of sooty hair, she stood motionless, fists clenched, fighting the traitorous tears welling up in her large brown eyes. A lone cricket chirped. Mikhail sighed. He sometimes forgot his sister was only 8, not a grown-up like he was. He would be 11 on his next name day. Then everyone would take notice of him. "You sure he's back?" his sibling hissed, when Mikhail took pity and beckoned her over to where he crouched behind a moss-encrusted wall. "Yes, I overheard Papa say, 'That fool Ivan has returned.'" "From the lands to the south?" "Yes. Where the dark-skinned men and horses with bumpy backs live?" Mikhail nodded again. He pointed between the trees to the orange glow from the ramshackle cottage on the outskirts of their village. "Follow me, and keep quiet." Sasha nodded, lips a firm bud, dodging chickens and keeping low whilst they scurried across the yard. The sun slid behind the mountains. Crouched below the window of the cottage, the siblings grinned at each other, hands over mouths to muffle their excitement. All the children in the village had heard tales of Ivan. Ivan the Wild, Ivan the Foolish, Ivan the Wanderer. The list of less than flattering names went on. None of them, however, had ever laid eyes on him. He was a figure of mystery, and his voyages to exotic lands were the subject of fervent fireside speculation. Just think of the tale they would have, were they to actually see him. "This is it?" a woman asked from within the hut. "Yes," came the sulky reply. The children stole a peek over the sill, eyes wide in anticipation. Ivan the adventurer looked the part, with his mane of long, dark hair and wild blue eyes. His scarred arms were hairy and muscular, and his mismatched clothes were well past travel-worn. "After all these years, the winters I've endured alone, the crops I've sown and harvested alone, you come back from your fool's errand with this tatty old scroll," he muttered. "Careful." Ivan moved his wife's hand away. "This tatty old scroll will change our lives, Anya." He caressed the swell of her scruffy dress. "And our children's." His wife snorted. "It's a wonder I'm with child, especially yours." She began scrubbing at the day's dirt. "You're a fool. Hard work is the only thing that'll change our lives, and you've neither the backbone nor stomach for it." The cottage fell into a sullen silence. "Did you hear something?" Ivan hurried to the door, his hand straying to the hilt of the chipped blade hanging beside it. He peered between the warped wooden slats. "Hear what?" Anya wiped her jaw. "Why are you so jumpy?" There was a thoughtful pause, and then she threw the cloth into the bowl. "You stole it, didn't you?" Ivan did not reply. His wife swore. "Durak, you are an idiot. Where did it come from? Who does it belong to?" "No one," he rounded on her. "It belongs to none but he who holds it, and I hold it now. The power will be mine to control." "Power?" came the incredulous shriek. Mikhail and Sasha gawped, snickering. "Look!" The little girl pointed to a hellish figure moving towards the hut. "He has horns." Mikhail squinted. "No, they're swords across his back." From the shadows, a figure approached the small cottage, treading lightly. Then another man slid from the gloom, and a third. The chickens and crickets were silent. Mikhail felt a cold sweat grip him. We need to get away from here. Sasha looked confused. Now, he shoved his sister away from the window. The command was punctuated by a hiss and a heavy thud, something splintering the wooden sill. They both let out cries. It was an arrow, followed in quick succession by a second, then a third. The last sailed through the window of the cottage and, with a sickening thud, found its mark. They did not see the fabled Ivan slumped to the floor, his adventures brought to an untimely end. "Sasha, run!" Mikhail shouted, shielding her slight frame with his own. Tears blurring her vision, the girl stumbled and tripped over the rough ground. A dark-skinned man with intricately scarred cheeks stepped into the hovel, casting a demonic silhouette in the doorway. He crossed the room, heading straight for the table. The beautifully carved wooden spindles of the parchment had once been gilded masterpieces. Now, only the faintest flecks of gold remained, and the settings mourned the loss of countless precious stones. But its veneer was of no importance. The words inside, the secret, held an incalculable value. The scarred man paid no heed to the body on the floor and ignored the woman with her arms wrapped protectively around her stomach. Picking up the scroll, the man left. Outside, the figures surrounding the cottage withdrew, melting into the night. "Mama!" Sasha burst through the door. "Papa!" "Sasha?" Her grandmother struggled upright. The old gypsy coughed, a dry, hacking sound that kept them awake at night. "What is it?" "It's Mikhail," she wept. "He fell back there and I can't find him." The woman pushed herself up. Clawing the lantern from the table, she wrestled a thick cloak across her bony shoulders and fought another coughing fit. "Show me." Fortified by the warm light and the presence of a grown-up, Sasha hurried between the trees, back towards Ivan's tumble-down house. "Over there," the little girl pointed. "There was a man with horns and—" The flickering glow from the lantern found a small, crumpled figure on the path. "No." Their grandmother sank to her knees. She set down the lantern, hands shaking. "No, no, no. Don't look, sweetheart. Go find your papa. Quickly, take the lantern. Go." Eyes wide, mouth slack, the child nodded and scurried back into the night. Coughing violently, the old woman reached forward, gnarled hands caressing the sandy curls she had loved since the first day she'd seen them. She cradled Mikhail's limp head in her lap, unable to look at the hateful outline of that feathered shaft. Screams from the cottage carried through the darkness. "Ivan! Ivan!" Anya stood over her husband, stomach cramping. The baby was coming. The door creaked, and she threw herself back. The old gypsy from the village shuffled in. "He did this." She pointed to the body beside the pregnant woman. Her worn face was tear-stained. "He brought this evil to our homes." Anya drew back as the woman lifted her crooked fingers. "You will pay, Ivan Jurak. Ivan the Foolish," she promised, stepping over him. "The sins of the father will follow your seed through the ages. I curse you." Her hand moved towards Anya's stomach. "They will know no rest. There shall be no respite. They will be branded the heralds of disaster, cursed, shunned, scorned, persecuted for all time." "No," Anya pleaded, shying away as her waters broke. "My baby is innocent." The gypsy stepped forward and drew a tiny knife. Mikhail was innocent. Slicing her palm, she spat on the wound, mixing hate and blood. She bound an ancient curse. No peace. She crept forward. No rest. In her other hand, she grasped a lock of sandy hair. No solace shall they find. Anya tried to slap the hand away, but clasping Mikhail's hair in her blood-soaked palm, the old woman drew it over the woman's heaving stomach. His sin will mark them. Through this life and the next, there shall be no penance. As her voice grew louder, a fetid wind burst through the open door and banged the shutters, racing around the pair, soaking up the warmth and light. All shall rue this day. Today. Ivan woke with a start. Troy, his floating robotic nuisance, nicknamed Popov after the famous clown, was peeking from between the heavy curtains, throwing a sliver of sunlight across his pillow and eyes with razor-like precision. Ivan moaned, rolling over and pulling the covers over his head. Troy jumped and let the curtain fall, releasing a cloud of dust. Sorry. The robot's nimbus bleached to somber mustard. I thought I heard something. You heard Anatoly, you fool. He lives here too, remember? Troy said nothing, used to his morning disposition. Ugh, Ivan groaned, flinging the covers back. He was awake now. Curse you, Popov. Make yourself useful and get me coffee. Troy bobbed and fled the room. As usual, Ivan was tired, bone-tired. He had been in bed for 10 hours, but it felt like his head had just hit the pillow. He inspected his hands, as he had every morning since he was 12. They were covered in ink again, despite being clean when he'd gone to bed. Busy night? He asked his fingers. What marvels await me this morning, I wonder? He noticed a dark welt on his wrist. That's new. Thought that stupid robot was meant to stop me killing myself. A laboured hum heralded Troy's return, struggling under the weight of a full cup. As his model was not designed for heavy lifting, Ivan's brother, Anatoly, had redesigned the tiny pincer arms after Ivan's demands had damaged them. Your coffee, sir, Troy murmured, sloshing the brimming cup. And this? Ivan demanded, showing the robot the welt. Troy's nimbus darkened. You fell, sir. Tripped on the carpet. Ivan cut off further explanation with a curt wave of his hand. What use are you? Get out of my sight. Troy's grill dipped, and he spluttered from the room. Ignoring the ink-stained sheets, Ivan swung his legs and sat on the edge of his bed. His big toe was also bruised, and the nail looked chipped. Tupoy Popov. His study was opposite his bedroom, for a very good reason. Ivan was a sleepwalker. Every night, a part of his mind came to life, rousing him from his bed to the drawing table in the next room. Every morning, Ivan awoke to a new creation. It was like being possessed by Da Vinci's ghost. It was a curse, quite literally, a very old, very powerful curse, manifesting in each firstborn son of his family, each called Ivan, in morbid memory of the first, Ivan the Foolish. He was Ivan the 18th. What do we have this morning, Popov? He asked, shuffling into the study. Troy was examining a detailed schematic on the desk. The flash from his camera pinged periodically, photographing the large page in sections. Ivan found himself marvelling at the grace and precision of the new design. Its neat clipped lines, precise curves, and perfect angles, annotated and to scale. During the day, he didn't have the level of artistic ability of primordial ooze. But at night, he was cursed with refinement and genius, sentenced to an existence of exhaustion and isolation. Looks complicated. It is. The robot's tone was clipped. What's wrong? You've designed an antimatter bomb, Ivan. Ivan noticed his slippers did not match. Is that bad? It's not good. Ivan took another noisy sip, leaning forward to peer at the innocuous drawing. How bad? In the wrong hands, it's end of the world bad. Ivan the 18th choked on his coffee.